Alrighty. You want to kick off with any questions? Anything they thought was confusing? Or do you have like opinions on this mini sprint in general? I'm lost. Really? Can you be a bit more specific, Patrick? Because I feel like a lot of this stuff should have been old hat.
Yeah, using all my old hat techniques, I was neither able to post posts, titles, and text, nor get them. So that's why I feel a little lost. But also, just wanted to open the floor to other people if they feel the same way.
Yeah, I think that the way that the lecture was presented was kind of like just a little different from the way that the mini sprint itself was set up, and so it's kind of hard to reason about. Like, so for example, in the lecture, you kind of you go through.
Oh shit! My bad. Did I?
And but then when we try and go into the mini, and we kind of like look at the way we would have to go about creating each of those routes.
Oh shit! Oh yeah, my bad. Okay, I didn't import the routes. Yeah, good catch, Jake. So Jake figured that out. I did that in my solution implementation, and then I forgot to do that one here. That was my bad. One sec. Let me just I'll just fix that here real quick. Here you need to do require the routes here. My bad, guys. Yeah, that's why nothing was coming back. I was running into that error myself when I was going through the solution. Then I fixed it in my solution code and then gave you guys the old unupdated code. My bad. It's totally different than we're used to. Yeah, okay. We can talk about that first. So with the layout of this project, you guys saw there are controllers, models, and routes. Does it make sense what each of these directories are supposed to be holding, just like conceptually? So really all you guys actually had to do, besides adding the line for the routes, so that probably messed a lot of you guys up, but yeah, you were only ever actually supposed to implement any code inside of the controllers, post controllers JS file. And then models and routes is handled for you already in this mini sprint. So it really is just like nothing here should be stuff that you guys haven't seen before. It's just kind of moved around. But the concepts are still all the same. So like all these methods are, you pass these methods over into the routes file, and then the routes file just calls these methods upon the appropriate endpoint once it gets hit, or once someone tries to access it. That makes sense. So you finished, right? Who, me? Oh, to Patrick. He meant Patrick. Well, I guess Patrick maybe didn't also figure out the routes thing in the server, so I'm guessing he probably wasn't getting anything back either. In your examples, I was kind of doing two things in one route. Yeah, this one, we need to start everything by just defining the post route. Yeah, so maybe what was slightly confusing in the lecture was, okay, yeah, I probably should have broken stuff down by how they should go in the different route methods instead of just, because I was just kind of just isolating the populate calls. Okay. Yeah, good feedback. I will go back and redo that particular lecture. Yeah, that's my bad. Okay. Yeah, so the way it was supposed to happen, the routes was supposed to be in the server.js file. So all you had to do was come in here to fill out all of these different methods. So we can go through that now. Okay. Okay. So yeah, none of these methods should look like anything new. Pretty standard stuff. So when we're going to create a post, and a post, if you looked in the schema, post has title and text. So grab those off of the query. And then we need to store a new post in an object, in a new post object with the title of text. And then save this. And then we can do send the new post back. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So that's our, is there an advantage using promise style for callbacks? Yeah, I would say callbacks at this point are not so much obsolete, but they're kind of just less, they're not so much the best practice anymore because promises provide for better syntax and better like readability. Like intuitively, when you look at just like dot then, I feel like that makes a lot more intuitive sense, right? So it just means we save our post and then once that's done, do this next thing. Do you want to zoom in your editor? Yeah. How's that? If that's good enough. Cool. Okay. So I would say definitely learn how to utilize promises and promise syntax because that's definitely the way. It's becoming more of the best practice than callbacks. And you'll see me. I'll be using that here so you guys can get an idea for what that looks like. But I personally think it's pretty intuitive. Although there is some stuff that there's stuff that is less intuitive about it, but I can explain that when we get there. Okay, so list posts. This just fetches back all of the posts with their with the comments inside of their arrays. So finding all of those posts, and then this is where the new populate method comes in. So here we're saying populate our comments array that you have on the posts. And then we can give it something like this, just text, which is the text field on the comments. So we don't necessarily get back all of the different fields in our comments. So when we get all the posts, all we see are the text comments and their ID. After this, call exec. And then if you guys are wondering, exec is what you need to call in order to basically give you access to the promise syntax. So you can, well, I guess with populate you would have to call exec regardless. Now that I think about it, but with exec, so you call this, and then it gives you a choice of whether you want to utilize a callback. So you can hand a callback into exec and then do the exact same thing you guys are doing previously with callbacks, if that's the way you're utilizing it, or you call exec and then it returns you a promise-like object. So it's not a full promise, but they give you access to like then and catch. But realize that when you call exec, the quote unquote it's not actually a promise that's getting returned. It's still the mongoose query object, but it does give you access to then and catch. So this is how you would utilize it inside of your mongoose queries. So here we get posts back, and then we simply send those out. Let's shift these all over, actually. This is just syntax stuff. It doesn't actually matter, but this is just how I like to do it. Actually, something I would also want to point out is, so when you do a res.json error, I don't know if you guys have noticed this before, but what happens is when you just do res.json error, it actually doesn't return the full error object. So what's happening is res.json doesn't like fill in, well, the actual term is it doesn't serialize this error object. And so a lot of times, like when I was actually working through this solution, I was getting confused because my code was dropping into these catches, and the errors that were getting back, because I was just doing the res.json error, it was just returning me an empty object, which wasn't helpful at all. And I didn't realize that till quite a bit after. And then, so I was debugging my code, and then found out that it's actually, you get a much more descriptive error if you do something like this. So here you're just breaking the error out yourself, and there's a error.stack, which is the stack trace that is inside this error object, and then you can also just return back the actual message as well. So doing something like this is way more descriptive, but I don't want to type all this out all the time inside of this lecture. So I'll just leave this one here and tell you guys what it's doing. And I would say prefer doing it this way versus just res.json error. Queries, if I use .then and query again, I'm talking about two queries, right? If I use exec, I'm talking about one query. If I use .then and query again, I'm talking about two queries. Internet lost signal. That's a good question, Alon. I don't know why you changed your name to PipeSync, by the way. It's kind of strange, but that's a good question. I will look into that afterwards. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Okay, so that is all we need. Then posts.
In the list posts return, you've got then post and then res.json.
Oh, cool. Okay, so this is everything we need to just create a post. So let's test this out real quick. So we can do, let me make sure need a MongoD instance. Python. Oops. Already in use. Oh, I already have another one running. Okay, so then this should just work. So we do posts and then give it a title. Post text, send that. No, I'm not running something else. What am I not? Oh, right, the server. Okay. You guys will see all my failings firsthand. Good stuff. Otherwise, I want to say synchronous. Yeah, Alon, I'm not totally sure about the answer. I will look into that afterwards. Or exec sync request. Okay, I don't know if Thompson's actually in this meeting and can hear me, but I think what Alon is asking about, he was also asking if calling exec like combines all the different queries into one query.
I think it does.
Okay.
The intention is that you can essentially specify a query in a few different lines. And I'm reading docs. I saw the question and I wanted the answer too, so I'm reading docs to be completely clear.
Awesome.
And you can generate kind of a multi-part query where you say, get users, and then give me the users that have a name that start with M, and then from those results, give me the ones that have less than $100, execute. And it will then concatenate that into a single request into Mongo and send you the result. And then you get the result in den.
Awesome. Thanks. Whoa, what? Is my instance running correctly? Okay, let me restart Postman real quick, just in case, because that was just hanging. Okay, request is still there. Let's try that again. Uh-oh. Oh boy, what did I forget this time? Restart my Mongo as well. MongoD. Did I misspell something? Rec params instead of rec query. They're not the same thing. If you inspect the request object, no, they're not the same thing. So request query should be correct. That's what I have in my solution code, which I am referencing. That should be working. What the heck? Create post, title, new post. Save, then new post. Let me see if we get here. No, it's just hanging. Interesting. Let me check my server.js file. think that's correct. Post DB. One sec, let me see. I think this might not be correct. Then let me check. API models. It's already been defined in the upper scope line 13. Oh man, what did I do? Try to pass a state? Can write the server file. True, connect then, put 3000. Oh, this should be underneath for one thing. Oh. That might have been the issue. Let's try this again now. Oops. And still something else is wrong. Okay. API routes, server listen, and console log. Okay. Error. Models post comment. Series by percentages. Post. Should routes be routes on 20? I don't believe so. It's working in my solution implementation. What else is different? I think that should be fine. Yeah, no, we're passing in this exact same, we're passing the server into this routes that we get required from. Let me check that. Might be an issue in routes. Okay. Controllers. App route. I think this is fine. True methods, delete comment. Okay, that seems fine. Then should be everything. Why is it still hanging? We'll close 3,000 posts. I'm exporting them. Public comments text. Post save. Pass status user error. It's not getting any errors back either, just hangs. Query uses question mark syntax. What do you mean? New post title text. Your routes use colon syntax. I have that in my solution code as well, so I don't see why that wouldn't be working. I have to get and post routes. Those routes don't use the colon syntax. But see, I don't think that would be the problem causing it to just hang. Does that have to be an exec in the create post? Did you say exec gives you access to promises? Let me check again real quick. We can try that, but I don't think that will fix the hanging issue. Isolating possible place to return in JSON. Oops. Oh, there we go. What changed? Was it really the exec call? Let's check. I want to test that. That's strange. No, it's not the exec call. Was it? Maybe we just didn't test when I moved the routes around in the server.js. That might have been it. Maybe we just didn't test after after we made that change in server.js. Anyway, fun little detour. So now let's try posting. Okay, cool. So we got a post. So that seems to work. So we just tested list posts and create posts. So I'm getting a really strange, I'm running into an issue with my NodeMon instance. I have like some incompatible versioning issues of some sort. And this is like a logged issue on NodeMon that I saw on GitHub. And the fix was pretty involved and complicated. And I haven't really had time to go into it yet. So right now I'm just going to use Node and deal with it for the time being. Okay, so now let's do this find post. So for find post, we'll need to fetch the ID from the query. Oops, params. Then find the post via the ID. And then once we find it, then we want to populate just like inside of list posts. So here we get back a single post. Return that post. res JSON error. Oops. Okay. Now let's test this by adding another post and then fetching just the one post back. Post, send that. So now fetch all our posts, and then let's just fetch one of these posts. Ooh, again, it is hanging. That is interesting. REST JSON. Why is it hanging? Populate comments, text exec. Server's still running. Mongo's still running. And post response JSON. Post. The catch. Did I hit the wrong route? Let me check the routes again. This should be the correct one for find posts. Yeah. So if we go back to just getting all of the posts, that one works and doesn't hang. Oh, because I didn't restart the server after I added that. Or it's not, or did I just forget to save? Okay, I forgot to save or something. Man. Oh, I'm on fire today. Okay. All right, so now we are fetching back individual posts. Now let's add comments. This is probably where we're going to start getting into territory that you guys maybe are less familiar with. So grab the ID off of params, and then we also need to grab the text off of the query. Make a new comment object. And then we need to specify that the comment's parent is the ID. So this is the post ID here, because the route is /posts /ID /comments to post to that endpoint. And then the text call save. And I think, Ryan, to answer your question from earlier, don't you need exec on save? I think with save you don't. It's strange and inconsistent, I know, but and I think exec wouldn't break it if you added it in, but you don't actually need it. It did break. It broke when you used exec? Interesting. That's just confusing, unfortunately. I get an error when I tried save exec, saying that save exec is not a function. Okay. Okay. Don't use exec on save then. But you can call then and catch straight on save itself. So after we save, then we can do a find the post. And then once we've found the post, we want to add that comment onto its post parent. Yeah, it is. Just save and then dot then. So we need to push the new comment onto the comments array on the post. So we need to do that. And then save the post. And then we can send back success true. Okay, so now let's make sure we save. That's important. Restart the server. Now let's try adding a comment. Cast a number failed. Oh boy. Cast to number failed. Coming back from parent. Like params. The query. Let's see. Okay, so it didn't add either. Okay. Check the schema probably setting ID, the content as number, and Mongo's trying to cast as an ID as a number. Yeah. String comments. And check the comment post as well. Parent type number. Is that what I have here as well? Oh, it is not. Okay. Looks like in my solution code, I actually have this as a object ID. Really sorry, guys. Apparently, I gave you a really incomplete mini sprint. So you're helping me guinea pig it right now, or you're being my guinea pigs right now. I'm testing this and making sure it's working correctly. I have all these changes in the solution code, and I guess I forgot to make sure the mini sprint was up to parity with it. My bad. So let's go back to here, run the server again. So let's run this post again. Okay, so that was the issue, and now that works. And now we get our comment back with the text and the ID from our populate call in find post here. Okay. So it's our add comment. Now for delete comment. Here we need the ID of both the parent comment as well as the actual comment itself. Params. So now let's find by ID and remove with the comment ID. Execute that. So what this line here, return promise resolve of comment, is doing is it's saying, perform this query, find by ID and remove, and then inside the then call, we get the comment back. And if you guys remember from way back in our promise lecture, which was, I think, quite a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago or more at this point, promise resolve is resolving this promise with the comment that it receives here in this then, and then returning that. So that's basically saying now we're inside of this comment variable, we are storing this comment object. So that's what's going on here. So it's finding by the ID, removing it, and then inside of this promise resolve, it receives that comment that got deleted, and then we're resolving the promise and returning that comment. You'll see why I'm choosing to do it this way in a second. Catch the error, blah, blah, blah. So now we've removed the comment and we have a reference to it. And then what we need to do is remove that particular comment off of its parent post. So now we need to perform a separate find by ID. Get that post. And then what we'll do in here is post comments find index, which is a method on the array prototype. So this is then mapping through the post comments that we're getting back from this post find, and then we need to compare that to the comment up here. So that's what's going on here. So this is combing through each of these C's are each of the different comments inside the post.comments array, and then we're matching against the comment up here that we already removed. And then once we find the index for that one, we can simply splice that out of our post comments array. And then return success true here. Okay. So that should be it for delete comment. So let's add another comment first. Post to / comments. Blah, blah, blah. Oops. This needs to be, oh man, okay. I'm not very creative with my inputs today. Okay, let's get to this post. Okay, 2 comments on it, and let's say we want to delete this one. Comments with the comment ID. Make sure we delete that. Send. Nope, I didn't save, and I didn't restart the server again. Oh, God, come on. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, success true. Now let's get this post back and make sure that, yeah, we did indeed delete that other comment. Okay. So let's just make sure by deleting this one as well, for good measure. Okay, no more comments on this one. Okay, and then our last one, delete post. Actually, let's add another comment back in because we're gonna need that. Okay, so our comment is there. And now for our delete post, what needs to happen is we would want to delete the whole thing along with all of its children, right? And then since comments are also persisted inside their own schema, we would delete the post and then go through and delete all the comments that also belong to that post that we just deleted, because we don't want any orphaned comments that don't have a parent to point to. Okay. So again, we need to grab the post ID. Keep doing that. Okay. Then comments. Remove. Post. Promise resolve. Same thing here as what I was describing earlier. We're finding the comment and removing it. And then inside of this then, we get that post. And then we are resolving the promise with the post.comments array. So we're returning that and then storing that in this reference, in this variable here. And then now we need to go and remove all of our comments. And so for this, we can do something like this, where we can use Mongo's handy in operator. So this is simply removing all of the comments with underscore IDs that are inside of this comments array up here. So this is fetching all the comments that belong to this post, and then we're removing, going through the entire body of comments and removing the ones that belong to this post. And then in here, we'll just do a send JSON. Okay, save, restart server. And now we will try deleting this post. Cast object ID, okay. What happens when we actually check the some post title? Oh no, I think we did. Did we end up deleting it? Let's try for this one. So it gives me this error, which I think I know what's happening. But let's see, when we grab all our posts again. So it did actually delete it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure what was happening was, I don't see what you were trying to resolve. Oh, you mean the error? Sorry, I can reproduce that. Oh, the promise. So here, what we're doing is, first we're finding the post that we want to delete. So we're doing a find by ID and remove with the ID. Why are you resolving a promise if it's not a promise but an async? Oh, I see. So you're saying we can just do, we'll return the post you deleted. Are you saying we can just do something like, you get the post from the callback? Right. That's why I'm using the same exec and then in catch. I'm basically trying to reproduce the same thing you would get with the callback functionality. Though I think you're getting at the root of the problem with what we were seeing. I think there's some strange asynchronous behavior going on here. Because it does end up deleting the post, but then the error that we were seeing, let me get that error back. So we need to post another comment. So, okay, then let's delete this one. Okay, so here it's saying cast object ID failed for value promise pending. So I'm pretty sure what's going on here is this comments variable ends up storing an unresolved promise. So I think there's some strange asynchronous stuff going on where when it hits this promise resolve, it hasn't finished the Y promise resolve. I suppose I could be wrong. Maybe we don't need it. What I was trying to do was I was calling promise resolve with this post comments to try to, basically I wanted this comments variable to store the post comments. So I wanted to get the comments on the post back and then just return post comments. So you're saying inside of this then body, okay, sure, let's try this. And then let's console log this comment here, just to make sure we are actually getting so I think the post did end up getting deleted. I'll just check real quick. Okay, so we have no posts, so again, we gotta make another one. Post that. So we have our post, and then delete this. Let's see. Okay, same thing. Right, so comments here is still a pending promise. And yes, I absolutely checked. I know I saved here, so this did get persisted. But again, I guess it did end up actually deleting the post. Yeah, so still deleted it. It just still deleted the post. So I think there's some strange asynchronous behavior going on here where this comments variable initially receives an unresolved promise, but then later on, it ends up resolving correctly, and then this remove call still goes through. Console log inside of the event, see if there's a promise yet. Give a callback inside the exec and console. You want one here? Okay, sure. What did you want to log? The post? Post. Sounds like somebody unmuted themselves. I'm going to mute you all again. Okay. Oh, it's complaining now we have a, oh. Let's try that. Okay. Let me just make sure real quick those are only post. Oh, we have another one. Oh, it's fine. Okay. Okay, same error. Handle error event.
Hey, Sean, can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah.
As awesome as it is to watch you try and troubleshoot this, I'm still totally lost and just struggling with the overview of
Okay.
what I'm trying to accomplish with this mini sprint. So I was just wondering if maybe you could go back to the mile high view again or something.
Okay, so the mile high view was basically to introduce you guys to the populate method, and the whole point of the populate method is to populate documents with other documents that they reference, right? So let me go back to the models real quick so I can show what I'm talking about. So models, and then let's go with post first. Right, so here, the whole point of this, we have this comments array on our post schema. And initially, this one just stores object IDs to a bunch of different comments that belong to this post, right? Does that make sense? So,
Gotcha.
okay, so the point then is with the populate method. So for example, if we never called populate and then we fetched this post back, then inside of this comments array would just be a bunch of IDs. And then we'd have to do something like loop through those IDs and then make another query in order to get those comments back, right? So the whole point of the populate method is it composes another query for you with these IDs inside of this array, and then goes and fetches those comment documents and then populates this comments array with the actual comment documents, right? Did we see that from when I was running the examples in Postman? We saw that we would get a post back, and then inside the comments body, it would have the ID and the text, right? So,
Yeah, gotcha.
cool. Okay, so the whole point of this is that we're working with documents that reference each other, right? So that's the new concept here, and that's something that we'll be using in the next sprint that you guys will be working on. And so that's basically the only new concept that we've tried to introduce in this mini sprint. Does that concept in and of itself make sense and why that's important?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, the way you've broken out the routes and the models and made it more modular seems like it's a lot easier to scale something like this up.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it's just me. I'm just getting a little eyes crossed with the actual implementation of it and everything. So thank you. I appreciate you going over that.
Yeah. Are there still any places in the code where it's still confusing for anybody? Actually, let me just show not just you. Okay. Sorry guys, if you didn't want to see me like debug this stuff, maybe, I don't know, speak up sooner so you didn't have to see me do that. Because I'm totally happy to not debug and just explain these concepts. And so same thing inside the comment schema, right? So we have a parent reference, a parent field, and the whole point of this field is just to reference its parent object, just to reference its parent post. And so we didn't actually do it in this mini sprint, but then you can also perform population the other way from the child's point of view, right? So if we had, for example, just a get comment route, and we didn't perform the populate, then this parent field would just be another ID. But then we could use the populate method to then populate this underscore parent field with the actual document of the parent, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's the mile high overview. Does that make sense now? And does it kind of make sense how you actually implement it in the code? Or do you guys still have questions on that front? Or anything you want me to go over in the code here that still isn't clicking?
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
I think where I'm having trouble is still with the concept of the promise and you know what it signifies.
Yeah.
I kind of get that part, but then we go to you know, we got the chaining that's going on now inside of the the routes, and that's I guess that's where I'm kind of like, where it goes like .x exec. Then could we go through what's happening at each part of those steps?
Which part again? Sorry.
I see a pattern that it says like then and then catch, or it'll say populate, execute, then catch.
Yeah.
Could we go through that flow?
Okay, so I think right now, or what you guys have been doing before. Okay, so let me write out list posts using just callbacks, and then we can compare them side by side and see how like the differences that they look like, right? So do a find, and then here you would, inside of find, pass in a callback, right? So you would do error, and then you get the post back here. Close that. So I think this is the pattern you guys are used to working with. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then here we would call although I think on populate, you actually would have to call exec regardless, now that I think about it. Because populate, I don't think that populate actually takes in a callback, but then you could keep on handing in callbacks here. Oh no, so you would have to do, sorry, no, it looks like you would have to do this and then call exec, and then you can pass in to a callback here, where then you would get error in posts. And then you would do response JSON posts here. After you do a if error check. So I think this is more along the lines of what you guys would actually write, I think. Can someone confirm or deny that?
Yeah, I think so. That's the part I'm lost on too, is from like last sprint, maybe even like the couple before that.
Okay, so we're just kind of, sorry?
Even on this part, I'm somewhat lost.
Okay, so just the concept of just passing the callbacks around.
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting what populate means. What happens at execute? What is it like? What is it going on at each one of those steps?
Okay, let me find the documentation so we can get a more formal definition. Oh, they don't have exec here. Thanks. Oh, no, there's a Stack Overflow here. Okay, cool. All right, came across a piece of Mongo's code that included a query find one, then an exec function. I've never seen that mentioned in JavaScript before. What does it do exactly? Basically, when using Mongo's documents, can be retrieved using helpers of the model methods, executing the callback or the exec function. So yeah, here, this is the callback paradigm. They're using user find one and then passing a callback straight into the find one, passing this callback function as the second argument. Here, they're using the exec pattern. Therefore, when you don't pass a callback, you can build a query and eventually execute it. So, okay, so this is allowing you to basically compose a query with a bunch of different, by chaining it with a bunch of different methods. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense, actually, now that I think about it. Does this have what we're looking for? No, this is the same place. Something that we're using prominent combination Mongo's async operations. Mongo's queries are not promises. Yeah, queries are not to return vendable. Okay, so okay, so it seems like the Mongoose queries, they'll actually run when you either call execute or you pass it a callback. So there are two different ways to actually execute the query. And when we mean execute, we mean like run the query, to have it do its thing, to either, you know, find or whatever, or save, or not save in this case. Save doesn't, I guess save just actually executes, because you can just do a model then call .save parens and invoke that. But seems with queries such as find, if you, yeah, it's saying if you just do this, this won't execute. So you either need to pass it a callback, or you call .exec on it to actually just force it to execute, right? So that means then we can write it this way and then have .exec right afterwards to force it to execute, instead of having it, instead of passing it a callback. And then it's the queries themselves. Okay, so I kind of misspoke. So then it says that all Mongoose queries have the then and catch methods on top of them. So it's not that you actually need to call exec in order to get access to them. It's not like exec is transforming the query or extending the query in any way by adding the then and catch on top. The queries already have those methods on them. And all we're doing by calling exec is actually executing that query. And then you have then and catch right on top. So we're saying here, in this list post example, we're saying post.find .populate. So we're combining these two together, the find and the populate. We're composing these queries together. And when we compose, we mean like mashing them together into one query, instead of saying find, and then once you get the result of find back, then we populate, which would mean 2 round trips to the database, right? Instead, what we would want to do is compose those queries together into one query, so we only make 1 round trip to the database and back. And it already will just return what we want in one query instead of multiple queries. So we're saying compose the find plus the populate and then execute it, because this is our entire query. We only want to do these 2 things, but you can extend it much further. If you want to do a whole bunch of other operations on it, that would normally require more database trips if you didn't execute that, if you didn't execute the composed query, right? And then once it's finished executing, then that means that we've gotten a result back. And then we call this .then or and .catch that are already present on the query object. And then in .then, that means that the query was successful. And then we do res.json and return that. Otherwise, we catch and perform our error handling. I know it was a mouthful, but did that make at least a little bit of sense?
Dude, that's exactly what I needed.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
One more question right there where we're working on line 34.
Yeah.
We have a post.find, and then the post, what does that signify?
The post? Oh,
yeah.
This just means we're finding a post.
That isn't a reference to the post that we imported up top?
It is. It is exactly that. So we're finding a so we're specifying from our find method which schema to go look through, or which schema body to go look through. So this, just think of this capital post as just all of our posts, so our entire post body.
So that's the post model. Could I say that?
Is that the actual post model? That's a good question. I'm
Okay.
not sure that's entirely accurate. If to say that's the actual post model, or if this is our entire body of post objects.
Okay.
I could see it being either way. I don't actually know off the top of my head.
And then on line 38,
Mhm.
when it says then posts, what does that signify, posts?
This posts here is the posts that we have received from this query, this post.find.populate, right? So if you're unsure about what this entire query is doing, just break it down by what each of the methods is doing on their own first, right? So we're doing post.find, and that just means find all of our posts, because we're not passing in any input to find. So this post.find just by itself is finding our posts. And then we're adding in a .populate on top of that. So what that is doing is when we return the result we get back from post.find is any post body matching the criteria, in this case empty. So it's all of our posts. And then within all of those posts inside that we get back from this one query, just post.find, their comment arrays are just IDs, because we haven't called populate on them yet. So then what populate does is it adds on more queries on top that go and look through the comments arrays, finds the corresponding comments documents, and then replaces those IDs with those new documents, right? That's how we got the actual example here. That's how we got it, so that inside of the comments arrays, we had the text of the comments as well. That's what this .populate query is doing. And then execute that. So once this is done executing, right, like think about what this query will return. This query will return a bunch of posts, right? Because we found all these posts and we populate all their comments arrays. And that's what you hand into the to then here. The result of this query that just got executed. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay, awesome.
Nice, thank you. And then that's the first part of the promise, and then right under the catch is just what is
the catch? Is the error handling. The catch is pretty much the exact same thing as what you're doing here with if error, then do this error handling. Catch handles that exact same thing. And just receives in the error as input.
When do you know to do the catch versus the if?
So if you're using then, you always need a catch underneath it. I mean, you can have a bunch of thens and then a single catch, which is the upside, right? Because which is the upside of using the promise chaining versus a bunch of callbacks. Because if you were to do a bunch of callbacks, like if we imagine there are a whole bunch more callbacks that we were making inside of this example here, then we would need to do if error on each one of those. And then the benefit of with the promise chaining, like we could do then again for like a bunch of times, and then we would have one catch that would handle all of the error handling for all of the previous thens.
Sean.
Yeah.
Maybe I think you are trying to use in streaming.
Trying to use what?
Mongoose has the streaming method that allows you to do what you are suggesting. Like basically in my exercise, if I use .exec, I can't use .dem because .exec basically will return me a special query, like the Mongoose documentation say that. I just pass it in the channel, like the frequent asked questions from Mongoose. Say that, or you pass a callback, or you treat the query especially, and not with then. Something like .then is a streaming for Mongoose, and use .on. You create a cursor and use .on.
Huh.
Take a look in the documentation.
Yeah, I'll do that. And if you want to talk more about that afterwards, let's do that. But for now, I think maybe that's a little out of the scope of this mini sprint. Okay, this is probably a good place to wrap up if anyone else has any lingering questions on anything I've said or any of the code or anything. I've been using that, then is wrong. Okay. So every time we get, sorry, I've also not caught up on the Slack questions. So every time we get posts, also checking for comments, it says posts, and pulling those into the posts. Yeah, Lois, that's correct. Okay. Using populate, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll be posting the solution. You guys can reference that, and should work better than this implementation that I live coded here. That one is slightly more thoroughly tested. Was this the intro to the main project too? So the main project is more has a wider scope, I would say, because for the main project there is a front end client which acts as basically the front end of like a blog post site, and so for that you'll be implementing a backend like this one with using population, using query population, as well as having schemas reference each other. And so you'll be building out a backend that ties in with the front end that's already been provided. So it's a little more all-encompassing. It's wider of a scope for sure. So the purpose of this mini sprint was just to introduce this last new concept of query population. Okay, so we have another. Oh, sorry, this was it. So, yeah, we didn't. There's no video introducing the main sprint itself.
But Shen, sorry, but the thing is, you must keep the Mongoose style. I mean, .then is correct. You must save and get it in the callback, or you get a special query, not exactly treated with then and as a promise. So the documentation say that. So
right. So the query has.
That's pretty dangerous to teach with .then, in my opinion. But anyway.
Okay. Yeah. The caveat with the queries is that they're not full-on promises. They're just query objects that have the .then and .catch, which provide the same behavior as what you would see in the promise specification, but they're not full-on promises. Yeah. There is that caveat. I thought the idea was record the mini solution lecture. So we've actually always tied the main sprint lecture in with the same lecture that also introduced the mini. I don't think we've ever actually had a lecture that just introduced the mini and then also separately another one that introduced the main sprint. Okay. But I can release you guys now with the Mongo 3 sprint, and then there's another 5:30 review session. So what is the mini then? Is it all just the same? The mini was this one was the mini. The mini is just like a more condensed version of the concepts that you'll be seeing in the main sprint. Well, in this case, the mini was just introducing the new concept here that you also need to make use of in the main sprint. And the main sprint ties in a bunch of other concepts that you guys have previously worked with. It can. Oh, seems like Ryan did not make this public. But yeah, there's another 5:30 review that we can do once you guys take a look around the main sprint. Yeah, Ryan needs to make this lab public first so you guys can access it.
That's why you was getting that promise unsolved.
Sorry?
Remember? That's because you probably should catch the result in the exec. Like always, I use the returning the exec, like with the callback, or I make I never had to make it, but Mongo suggests a cache function like that by accessing the memory and storing.
Okay. Yeah, Stevie, I'll push those changes right now. Okay, so this should be updated now. Let me just check real quick. Any other questions? Just make sure all these fixes are the ones we're talking about. Oh shit! I just pushed all the code as well. Okay, I will give me like. I'll just do this right here. So I'm just gonna go and delete all this again. So for those of you who want to retry this particular exercise, you can do that. And then we'll be releasing the mini sprint solution code as well. In case you want to reference that later on. Okay, so now that should be fixed. Yeah, exactly, Eli. That's what I was getting at. Oh, exec gives you a fully fledged promise. Oh. Okay, I didn't see that then. I did not see that. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm gonna end this here, and let me check with Ryan that he make that sprint public. All right, thanks, guys.